We are filming, okay. We're videotaping.
You're blinking.
Well, welcome. This is a joy to see all of you. If you cannot hear me precisely, raise your hand. We'll do what we can to be a little bit louder. My name is Bob Andrews, and the background to this was when Van was expressing his desire to continue the tradition with nominal investment. He mentioned it to me, and I'm nominal investment, as we're doing this for free, and it's great. And I hear Vic, Linda, things are going well elsewhere?
Yeah.
Terrific, okay. Hesfield is good.
St. Joe's Library.
St. Joe's Library, yeah, we saw the music, or heard the music, and saw the encampment. Some good things happening. I am not an expert. I always begin that point because I'm not. I've done some research and it's been rather interesting. If you read my column yesterday in the Danville News, you got a bit of a hint of some of the things I'm going to be talking about. The nature of the worker in the 19th century here in Danville. Part of my premise is we got a lot of stuff about Beaver and Geisinger and the Grove Brothers and all the other bigwigs, but they're not the ones that built this town. They may have invested a little bit, and that's nice, although the Grove Brothers really didn't. And I did have a joyous moment when they did call the daughter or the descendants of the Grove family wanting to tour the mansion, and they wanted to come to Grove Presbyterian Church to see the church that was named after their family. Whereupon I said, Presbyterians do not name buildings after individuals. It was named for the trees. Pop. It was lovely. But I've also been it's one of the things over the years of the festival I've been attuned to, the need to focus in on the worker. It's not just an appreciation that we try to teach our confirmation kids and other kids that if you don't know the name of the janitor at the school, as well as the principal, you're not really a good student. And that applies in my trade and a lot of our businesses and trades. The worker. It also because my great love for Studs Terkel, great journalist, Chicago journalist, and his book, Working, which I alluded to again in my column, when he asked, who built the pyramids of Cheops in Giza? And as he writes, it wasn't Pharaoh. It was all the peasants and all the laborers and all the engineers who hauled the block. Pharaoh hauled no block. And so his book on Working is a very brilliant book focusing on people who actually built things and created a town, such as Danville. But there's also another side to it that I wanted to highlight, and it has to do with one of my first visits in town, way back when we came in 1989, and not my first visit, but getting to know some people. And I'll call her Jay, because I was asking a little bit about her family, her history, and Jay reported to me she was conceived because her mother did not have enough money to pay rent for that month. There is another side to the coin of Danville that needs to be heard. Part of that also came up with some lovely people who many of us remember and know, and that was like Daisy Connolly and Mill Beagle. Hello, Mary Ellen. Daisy Connolly and Mary Ellen, Mill Beagle, and that's okay. And I remember when this bicentennial book came out of Danville, and I'm visiting Daisy Connolly at the nursing home, and she and Mill were snickering because she said, boy, with all the family histories, if they really knew who was related to whom. There's another side to Danville. Metropolis. If you haven't seen this silent film, Metropolis, I heartily recommend it because it does speak to what I'm speaking to today. Metropolis was 1927, a German silent film. I love silent movies. And it was talking about all the people who lived in luxury at the top and all the people below who trudged off to work below in the machinery and in the industry that made everybody up top wealthy. And the movie concludes with the son of the leader of the metropolis becoming the heart, connecting the belly with the mind. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish today. Wonderful movie. And I start by some narrative from a fellow that Van Wagner interviewed years ago. This goes to about 1930, and then we're going to wind the clock back to the Civil War era and the beginning of that whole industrial movement. Dad said, "You better get down to the mill and see if you can get on." I was just a kid then, weighed about 130, and damn first day I walk in the door, I got a job. And I was so mad. Come on in. Hunting season, you know, I wanted all year to go hunting, and then something like that happened. Now the men who worked at the furnaces had what we called work shoes. That would be full of sweat while you were working, and rolling out the back would be sweat. They made about $5 a day. Was that in the furnaces across the road from the mill? That was in the furnaces in the mill. They took the shale, there's some ore in it, they mixed that all up in these furnaces, then they'd roll it up in a ball, puddling. Yeah, that was puddling. What would they put in the furnace? Well, they put in what we call pig iron. In other words, it was the first, you see iron, they don't use it the first time they heat it. It has to go through different processes to temper it and whatnot. They used to use bacon on the rolls to grease the rolls. I guess it was cheaper than, it smelled pretty good. Oh, it was quite a place. When did your dad stop his ice job and begin working at the big mill? It was night and day. He worked 2 jobs. He worked the mill at night and delivered ice in the daytime. Well, geez, you didn't make nothing. You had to do what you had to do if you had a family. You know over where Beaver Place is? Well, that's all built on slag from the blast furnaces. I dug a few cellars over there. You know, if that mill had hung on, say, 6 months longer, it would still be there. It was sold just before World War II. I went into the service about that time with the National Guard. Quite a place over there, the big mill, I mean. I worked there about 2 years. We were just so tickled pink to have a job. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It was a good place to work, but it was damn hard work. We may have got a 15-minute break every so often. You got a couple of minutes to eat lunch, maybe half an hour if you're lucky. What was it like in the mill? Hot and dirty, stinking and sulfury, a lot of sulfur, coming from all that soft coal. Soft coal? You mean bituminous? Yeah. I always thought they used anthracite. Not in there. I think they used anthracite in the blast furnaces. But in the big mill, we was using all soft coal. Johnny Mitchell. You ever hear that? John Mitchell, the great union organizer. Now that's where the union started coming in there, after the Molly Maguire started. There was a lot of dust in the air in the mill, but nobody complained. They were just happy to have a job. Honest to God, I think that's what all it was. They didn't care. When a person died, you didn't think much of it. It was just natural. I never saw anyone die there at work, but there may have been some. Goes on talking about a lot of heavy drinking. Daisy Connolly shared with me, she remembers in the early days in the banking business, they paid in coin. And most of the coin ended up in the bars. The big mill. Once there was an explosion down there. It was before my time. A baby was killed across the street from the big mill. I never heard much more about that. That was before my time. I guess there were tubes in these boilers that got clogged up. A lot of debris. I'll get to that in a little bit. So our Danville timeline, and again, if you really want, there's maps over at the Danville, the Montgomery House with all the different furnaces. It was chaotic all over the place, largely down at the where the school is now. That was the big mill. but the Rough and Ready and a lot of the other ones stretched out across where we would have the Kennedy Van Son up there by Domino's and that stretch. And it's not too far away. I was talking to one of our older members who actually, Dr. Foss performed surgery on him, Carl Freiling. And Carl was talking about his uncle and his father as a young boy working in the Beaver Stove Works, which is just down there towards the soccer, heading in that direction. But what I, in reading some of the material, came across was how fascinating it was. We have this image that everything was fixed or steady and permanent. It wasn't. At one point, I think there were about 57 furnaces of some kind or another in Danville. There were explosions. There were fires. One of the mills burned down before it was even able to be operated. You had depressions. You had wage cutbacks. You had businesses going out of business, new owners taking over. In 1829, the first iron foundry, plows, machinery, agricultural implements, lasted 3 years. Eagle Foundry lasted 1 year, rebuilt in 1887. Cases went from 1838 to 1852. The National Iron Foundry, that had a fire, change in owners. We think Mill Street is chaotic. 1837, iron ore, limestone for malleable iron. Then the 1838, the anthracite mines. And again, I am not a chemist. I know nothing about this stuff, just what I've read. In 1840, the Grove brothers move in and buy a blast furnace. They built several others, the Rough and Ready Mill. Then the Montreal Iron Company, the City Iron Works of Waterman and Beaver. They attracted workers from Pennsylvania and immigrants competing for jobs. So if we think we're competing for jobs now and dealing with immigrants, what we were paying in this country was by far better than what was happening in Wales or in England. And hence a lot of the migration that brought them over, because they were desperate for work. So if you have the natives who are trying to find jobs, you've got other folks coming from all over the places around Pennsylvania coming to Danville. There's some speculation at some point there was about 14,000 people in here. I think it was 1 out of 5 were unemployed. Then you also add to that all the immigration that's coming in. It was difficult. I remember Bill Cole, and you'll never tell him that he told me this. Back in the Bloody Third, he used to get beat up all the time.
Bloody Third.
You too?
No, I didn't go there.
In 1840, you had 50 wooden company houses, eventually 300. It was called Welshtown. Also, that's that cemetery way up in there, up on the hill, that sort of dilapidated that they wanted to recover. I don't know, did you get in on any of that? Recovering this, go up and tour those tombstones? That connects with Joseph Perry, the organist, musician. Eventually 300 of those company stores. By the way, bear in mind, and you can see that over at the Montgomery House, the script that the workers were paid. Someone's hearing this. Someone knows this. They weren't paid originally in dollars or coins, U.S. currency. They were paid in company currency. They made their own money, and so it would only be used in their own company store or for rent for the company home that they lived in. Often 3 to 4 families in the same home. In 1844, the demand for iron falls, sold out, new owners, new mill built. 1845, the T-rail comes into operation. You have fluctuations in the economy, increased competition, foreign manufacturers. $60 per ton falls to $20. The mill's closed for weeks, and no work, no food. 1853, mill accident. 1853, another mill burns down. In 1873, 8 blast furnaces, 4 raw rail mills, puddle mills, foundries, machine shops, pattern shops. 1873. We think we have a recession going on. That was horrible in 1873. We're going to get back to that. In 1874, a third of Pennsylvania's workforce was unemployed. Add to that the veterans who have come home. Which takes us to 1877. I think when Pittsburgh had its major strike, they burned the entire depot and all the locomotives. Sunbury gets in on the act, as well as Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Sunbury, Reading, and they're shutting down the railways, the workers are, because they're supporting the strike, and they don't want workers or the Pinkertons, strike busters, getting in there. I think 4 were killed in Sunbury, another 40 were killed in Pittsburgh, I think about 10 or 8 up in Wilkes-Barre. Again, we think we have chaotic violence going on today. It was rampant, which takes us in Danville. On the morning of July 23rd, the workers appointed a group to ask the Commissioner of the Poor for bread or work. The Commissioner passed the buck to the mayor. At 3 p.m., a large crowd gathered at the weigh scales on Mill Street in the middle of Danville. One speaker said, "We will give the borough authorities until tomorrow at 10 a.m. to devise some action to give us work or bread. If at that time nothing is done for us, we will take blank, 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 whatever we can find." John Steyer discussed their poverty and demanded government aid. The town newspaper reported that unless the borough council banned starvation, disorder will ensue. Men would take the law into their own hands. The next day there was almost a bread riot. Actually there was. Men would take the law into their own hands. The next day there was a bread